In 2006, Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old medical student from Ohio State University, went out for a night of fun with friends, but by the end of the evening, he had vanished without a trace. Despite being seen entering a bar and never leaving, Brian was never seen again. His sudden disappearance baffled investigators, and over a decade later, his case remains one of the most perplexing missing persons cases in the United States. Was it a tragic accident, a sinister crime, or something far more mysterious? Stay with us as we try to piece together the mystery behind Brian Shaffer's disappearance. Brian's life before the disappearance. Brian Shaffer was a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University, known for his bright future and close-knit group of friends. Born on March 25, 1979, Brian grew up in a small town near Columbus, Ohio. He was the oldest of two brothers, and from an early age, he exhibited an academic and athletic drive that set him apart. His interest in medicine led him to pursue a career as a doctor, and by all accounts, Brian was well on his way to achieving his goals. Brian's family and friends described him as intelligent, driven, and kind-hearted. He had a strong bond with his family, particularly with his mother, Renee, and his father, Randy, who were both supportive of his education and personal endeavors. He was well liked by his peers, and he had a steady girlfriend named Alexis, whom he had been dating for about 2 years. Brian was a man who appeared to have everything going for him: a promising future, a loving family, and a good relationship with those around him. However, as with many young people, Brian was no stranger to the pressures of school and life. In the months leading up to his disappearance, he was dealing with the stress of medical school and the recent death of his mother, who had passed away after a long battle with cancer. Brian's relationship with Alexis was also facing challenges, though it seemed they were working through them. On March 31, 2006, Brian decided to go out for a night of fun with his friends in Columbus. Little did anyone know, this night would be the last time anyone would see him. The fateful night. The night of March 31, 2006, began like any other weekend night in the bustling college town of Columbus, Ohio. Brian and his friends, two close friends, Clint Florence and Meredith, who were also students at Ohio State University, decided to go out and celebrate the weekend. The group met at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a popular bar near campus, around 9 p.m. It was a typical night for Brian, a chance to unwind after a week of exams and schoolwork. The Ugly Tuna Saloona, located on High Street, was a lively, well-known spot for students and young professionals. Brian and his friends spent several hours at the bar, drinking and socializing. Brian was seen talking to other patrons, and there was nothing to suggest anything out of the ordinary. Around 1:15 a.m., after the bar was closing, Brian and his friends decided to leave and head to another nearby bar, the Columbus Ale House. However, they would never make it. Before leaving the Ugly Tuna Saloona, Brian was last seen talking to a woman near the entrance. He was then caught on a security camera walking toward the bar's exit. This was the last time anyone saw Brian Shaffer. He was seen on surveillance video entering the bar's exit at 2 a.m., but mysteriously, he was never seen leaving. Brian had simply disappeared. The investigation begins. The following morning, Brian's friends became concerned when they realized that he had not returned home. His phone was off, and he didn't show up for a prearranged meeting with his girlfriend, Alexis. Alarmed, they began contacting family members, and by the afternoon, they decided to report him missing to the police. At this point, Brian's family was already in a state of distress, knowing that something was terribly wrong. The police began investigating the circumstances surrounding Brian's disappearance. They knew that Brian had been at the Ugly Tuna Saloona around the time the bar closed, but what they didn't know was what happened after he entered the bar's exit. The surveillance footage from the bar's security cameras showed Brian walking toward the exit around 2 a.m. However, the footage did not show him leaving, nor was there any sign of him inside the bar. Brian seemed to vanish without a trace. The security cameras outside the bar did show Brian's path toward the entrance. but there was no footage of him leaving. The police were perplexed, and it seemed as if Brian had simply disappeared into thin air. There was no sign of a struggle, no signs of foul play, and no apparent reason for his disappearance. The authorities searched the area around the bar and questioned people who had been there that night, but no one had seen anything unusual. Friends and family began to speculate about what could have happened. Was Brian a victim of a crime? Did he get involved in something dangerous that night? Or was there a chance he had walked off, perhaps intoxicated, and became lost in the city? Despite an extensive investigation, the answers were few and far between. Theories and speculation. As days passed, theories began to emerge surrounding Brian's disappearance. The most obvious question on everyone's mind was, where did he go after he entered the bar's exit? There were several theories that seemed plausible, but each one had its flaws. One of the initial theories was that Brian had accidentally fallen into a construction site near the bar, and perhaps his body was hidden by debris. However, after a thorough search of the area, no sign of Brian was found. It seemed unlikely that such a tragic accident could occur without anyone noticing, especially considering how visible the construction site was. Another theory that quickly gained attention was that Brian had been the victim of a crime. Was it possible that someone had harmed him or taken him from the bar? However, there was no evidence to support this theory. Brian's personal belongings, including his wallet and phone, were never found missing. Some people speculated that Brian had decided to disappear voluntarily. Given the stress of medical school and his personal life, some suggested that Brian might have wanted to escape for a while. However, this theory didn't sit well with those who knew Brian best. He had no history of wanting to disappear or cut ties with his family and friends. Additionally, he had plans for the next day, including a trip with his father, making this theory less plausible. One of the more puzzling aspects of the case was the lack of evidence showing Brian leaving the bar. Could someone have seen him leave and not said anything? Perhaps Brian had walked out of a side door, or he had entered an area not covered by the security cameras. Despite this being a possibility, it didn't explain why no one saw him exit or heard any commotion in the bar. The continuing mystery. As time went on, the case of Brian Shaffer's disappearance gained widespread attention. The media covered the story extensively, and public interest grew. Theories continued to surface, and investigators began to feel the pressure to find answers. But despite the attention, the case remained unsolved. The public was left with the same unanswered questions. Where did Brian go? Was he a victim of a crime, or did he simply vanish of his own accord? The legacy of Brian Shaffer's disappearance. The disappearance of Brian Shaffer remains one of the most baffling mysteries in recent memory. Despite extensive searches, media coverage, and police efforts, the case remains unsolved. Every year, new theories emerge, but the truth behind his disappearance remains elusive. What happened to Brian Shaffer? Was he a victim of foul play, or did he leave on his own terms? The answer to that question remains locked away, leaving his family, friends, and the public in suspense. His friends and loved ones still remember him fondly, and they keep his memory alive in the hopes that one day, the truth will be revealed. The mystery of Brian Shaffer's disappearance continues to haunt everyone involved in the case. What could have happened that night in 2006? Theories will continue to circulate, but the truth remains unknown. Brian's case is a reminder of how a life can disappear in an instant, leaving nothing behind but questions. If you have any information or theories about Brian's disappearance, his family would love to hear from you. Until then, we continue to wait for answers. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on more true crime stories and mysteries.